Okay, so today we are here to persuade you guys on why you should support the St. Louis Symphony. In our interview with Eric Dundon, the public relations manager, he asked us if we had listened to music on the way over there, or if we had listened to music in our headphones today, or just while doing homework. And everybody obviously said yes, because we all listen to music. And then he shared with us that the St. Louis Symphony's mission is to enrich people's lives through the power of music. Music is a very important thing to everybody's lives, and whether they are creating it or listening to it, music can be very powerful. Just by hearing like the tapping of somebody's pen can remind you of a song you were listening to and take you back to what you were wearing, how you were feeling that day when you heard the song, and who you were even with. Music provides meaningful memories for many people in any age group. And music has a way of bringing in different groups of people together. And currently there's kind of a divide in the people of America, and especially in St. Louis. So with the help of a common interest, music can bring those different groups together and hopefully be able to express themselves in a safe place. So somewhere like the St. Louis Symphony can provide one of those places for an everlasting memories to be made through their amazing shows. The St. Louis Symphony is fully investing their motivations towards expanding exposure of classical music to people everywhere and hopefully across the world, because it's very important. Exposure to classical music can provide you with a history and music lesson all in one, because everything we have talked about everything that you listen to now has come from the historical music that they play at the symphony. And just taking time out of your weekend to just go see a show at the symphony could be a really different and chilling experience by surrounding yourself with sounds that you've never heard before, and maybe being in an environment that you've never seen. And the symphony is very pretty, obviously. Those are some of the pictures from the inside. And the St. Louis Symphony has been spreading their influence of music among all of us from the beginning of their long history.
All right, man. On the topic of history. Now, the St. Louis Symphony was founded in the 1800s and was originally called the St. Louis Choral Society. They also didn't used to perform at Powell Hall, and it used to not be called Powell Hall. It used to be called the St. Louis Theater. You can see a picture there of the St. Louis Theater in 1968. Seems familiar, huh? Now, they're in their 139th season currently, and their next season, the 140th, will start up on September 12th with their Forest Park concert, which, by the way, is a free concert for those of you who didn't know. Now, the St. Louis Symphony, funny enough, is actually the second oldest symphony in the States, second to New York. Now, the biggest opportunity for the symphony that they have is, well, as Eric Dundon put it, their biggest opportunity is to be able to expose more people to classical music, seeing as how, well, let's face it, St. Louis ain't the most classical place. Like, when you think St. Louis in your head, you don't automatically assume, hey, everybody goes to the symphony, everybody has a good time. But that to them is an opportunity to expose, like I said. How they do that, one of their main opportunities for presenting people to that is family events. We have stuff like the Christmas concert. They have a Harry Potter concert as well. They just have a lot of stuff to try and draw in the St. Louis community, and they also have a big challenge with the St. Louis community, and ties in what he's about to talk about.
So the challenge with the St. Louis Symphony is the same as he said, just from a different viewpoint. So with that, think about you and your friends, like, growing up, most of your parents or your friends' parents don't probably play classical music anymore at home. Years back, when my parents were young and probably your parents were young, they probably listened to classical music from their parents. So we don't get that. So one thing that the St. Louis Symphony offers is what's called an instrument playground to the youth. What the instrument playground is instruments sponsored by the Symphony Volunteer Association, or the SVA. So what members of the SVA do is provide presentations to kids on each instrument family, the 4 different types, and kids get to try the instruments. So they do this at things such as the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, family concerts, early childhood concerts, and the Picture the Music Awards ceremony. So like Logan touched up on, I like to touch up on it more. We like to change, St. Louis Symphony would like to change the perception of the symphony. Because what most people think of when they talk about the symphony is probably older men that's paying a lot of money, older rich men paying a lot of money to go see the symphony. But they're not trying to have that be the case. Like Logan said, they have plenty of fun concerts, like they put on a Harry Potter concert where they do plenty of pieces from Harry Potter. They also put on the Ghostbuster concert, which is the same thing, where they put on plenty of pieces from the Ghostbusters. And another thing that St. Louis Symphony would like to use in order to build themselves is social media. So people don't use TV or news or newspaper as much as more to get their information. The new generation likes social media, such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And the St. Louis Symphony has all 3 of those. The way they like to use social media is to make their customers feel like they're a part of the experience. On their social media, of course, they'll post all the dates that they have concerts and everything such as that. And they also give interviews to the players just to know more about them, their family, their personal life, just to see what they're like as a person. And their fans really like that because they get to interact more with the musicians.
So, although the St. Louis Symphony is known for their classical music, they sometimes have more popular radio artists like Nelly come in to try to bring people to the symphony who haven't been there before. And they host about like 200 concerts a year. Many of the concerts take place outside of Paul Hall. And they have one of the oldest educational programs in the city. It's nearly 100 years old. And they also host free community concerts at retirement homes, churches, hospitals. And so one of the biggest challenges that it's already been reiterated is trying to draw more interest into classical music. And one of the ways they do this is to have more popular music performed from musicals and movies. And there's also the free concert in Forest Park, as Logan mentioned. And another challenge is to figure out the pricing so that not only people who have a lot of money attend the symphony, but it's more affordable. And try to make it more in a way to make it more accessible to everyone. And so one of the main goals of the symphony is to bring the city together through music, and one of the main people in charge of achieving that goal is the new music director, Stephen Deneve. He will be there for the 2019-2020 season.
Alright, so how can a college student get involved? How many of you guys have gone to the symphony? Raise your hand. Alright, so a couple of you. One of the biggest things that the symphony emphasizes is just getting people to show up. Nowadays, a lot of people don't listen to classical music, and they find it difficult to get new people, especially younger people, into the symphony. Eric was explaining how a lot of people view the symphony as just old, rich, white people, that show up and they don't really care about anything else, and they just classical music is just for older people. But he was trying to explain like that's not really the case. You know, they're trying to appeal to all ages and all types of people. Another thing to get involved is exposure. So like I said, and like we all have said, the younger community really doesn't listen to classical music, and that's one of the things they're trying to emphasize through social media and other programs that they're trying to do. They have college campus coordinators who help organize like student nights. As you can see in the picture up there, it says college students visit during a student night. And they have a bunch of stuff that you can do, such as meeting the musicians. You know, after they perform, it's really cool to meet the musicians. These musicians are from around the world, like even from Europe and Asia and all around the world. The Symphony of St. Louis is, you know, well known around the world if you're like into the symphony and into classical music. Anywhere you go, you know, St. Louis is one of the best classical symphonies out there. Another thing is, as I said, they have student nights, and at the student nights, they do giveaways such as, you know, like autographs from the musicians, or even like free tickets or food. Not only is the symphony just a symphony, but they also have a very nice bar area. There's 10 floors to the symphony, so it's really not just what everyone thinks as the like classical symphony. There's a bunch of other stuff. And then finally, as I said, the main goal of the symphony is just to include everyone and try and get the entire city of St. Louis connected at one place. And what benefits are available when you contribute or buy tickets, memberships, or volunteer for the organization? Concerts are cheaper if you buy in bulk. So like maybe you don't buy all your tickets for just yourself. You know, you can buy tickets for your parents or friends or aunts and uncle, you know, relatives. Subscribers get first picks on seating. There's not really a bad seat in the house, but it's obviously nice to get a spot that you desire and, you know, want to sit at for a couple hours to listen to some very good music. Satisfaction of supporting and preserving an organization since 1880. You know, the symphony has been around since 1880, which is one of the oldest, you know, organizations in St. Louis. It's in essence like the bedrock of St. Louis. You know, like 5 things when you think of St. Louis, you know, maybe the Cardinals, Blues, City Museum, and the symphony is for sure up there, and then maybe the zoo. But it's one of the oldest organizations and foundations in St. Louis. And another thing, by supporting the symphony, is defining an identity for St. Louis. You know, they try really hard to try and connect all types of people and to try and reach out to all groups and try and influence everyone through classical music. And then lastly, it's the bedrock of St. Louis, and you should take great pride that St. Louis has such a great symphony. And it's really just a world-class symphony.
Okay. Music, not just classical music. The symphony provides a lot of other shows. Like we said before, they just had a show about Star Wars, and they are now working on Harry Potter, which is going to be this weekend. And music, as it's been said multiple times throughout this presentation, that it has an impact on everyone's lives, and we want to have that stay with us for the rest of the time. We want to keep the history in St. Louis, and we want to be known for something better than just our sports teams. And the history of our music should be forever cherished. So through your donations, you can help keep the history of music alive in St. Louis. Okay, perfect.